Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Neil Gurley. I'm an assistant here at Cobb Law Group. And I'd like to just go ahead and welcome you all to our webinar. This is Effective Selection of Experts for Defense of Construction Cases, presented by David Jones and John Hammerly. David Jones has analyzed and designed hundreds of commercial, residential, industrial, educational, recreational, municipal, healthcare facilities, and other structures from Alaska to Florida, and has developed a specialty with respect to historic wood-framed and masonry structures. His experience includes a broad range of projects from the structural design of buildings and foundations, civil and structural design of pipeline and earth retaining structures, to the structural remediation of historic buildings and structures. John Hammerly is the Vice President of Business Development of Nelson Forensics. He is focused on serving current clients and developing new opportunities to help Nelson grow as the nation's leading forensic expert firm. Mr. Hammerly leads Nelson's business development team, identifying and monitoring key relationships while promoting a positive company image. In addition to concentrating on Nelson's business development professionals, he works closely with the firm's leadership team while continuing to grow and manage both the Southeast region and the complex accounts nationwide. I would like to welcome John Hammerly and David Jones. And also, before we begin, I would like to add that you can give your questions in the question bar throughout the duration of the presentation, but we will be answering them at the end. So David, I'm going to make you the presenter and you can go ahead and take it away.
Neil, I'm going to step in for just 1/2 second. I know this isn't planned, but I'm Mark Cobb, for those of you who don't know me, and I'm the founder of the Cobb Law Group. We're exclusively a construction law firm, been practicing for 20 years. And I can honestly say whenever we need an expert, we look directly at Nelson Forensics. They just, I met the principal. I know the guys in the region office extremely well. One thing I like about them, of course, they provide great experts, but if it's an area outside their expertise, they also let us know that, and they give us a referral for somebody else in the industry. So I do highly recommend them, and we're very lucky today to have David with us. He's an expert in his field, and those of you who have been involved in construction litigation understand the important role that experts play. So thank you, David, for giving us your time and coming and speaking with us today. We greatly appreciate it.
Sure thing, Mark. Thanks. This presentation is on the selection of expert defense witnesses for construction cases. I'm going to have to figure out how to move this stuff around because I need to be able to get to my buttons here. Hold on a second. Oops. All righty. Like I said, my name is Dave Jones. Let me get a couple things here in order before I get started. I'm a technical director for Nelson Forensics, LLC, officed in Tallahassee. Our corporate office is in Plano, Texas. I have, I know I don't look it, but I have 40 years of civil and structural engineering experience. And I'm licensed in 30 states and the District of Columbia. That doesn't necessarily mean anything in and of itself, 30 states. It just means that I'm certified and licensed in those locations and available for services in those locations. As Neil said, I've analyzed and designed hundreds of commercial, residential, industrial, educational, recreational, municipal, healthcare, and other structures, including some civil pipeline structures, from Alaska to Florida. Started my career in Alaska, and basically Alaska and Florida are two of the main locations of my work, but I also spent some time in South Carolina near Hilton Head. I have experience and a fair amount of experience with historic wood-framed and masonry structures. I worked for the state of Florida Parks and Recreation Parks Department with the Department of Environmental Protection, and I was the structural engineer for the state parks for Florida for several years. So I got to work on some interesting things. When I started out my career in Alaska, I was doing a lot of educational facilities in the bush. Alaska, kind of interesting little side note, it was mostly due to a law case that a high school student won against the state of Alaska to get equal opportunity for education, no matter where they were in the state. So the state of Alaska ended up having to build elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools throughout the state, placing a lot of them in the middle of nowhere, which was pretty interesting for us, but it definitely was an experience. When I was working for the state of Florida, I got involved with the restoration and reconstruction of the Cape Florida Lighthouse on Key Biscayne and the Fort Zachary Taylor armament on Key West, among other things, but those were two of my most favorite projects when I was with them. This is, never mind the gentleman proposing to the woman in the foreground, that's the Cape Florida Lighthouse in Key Biscayne. I was involved in all of the steel work, or the cast iron work. That was the spiral staircase in the center of the tower, and all of the black structure, the field room, the lens room, and all of that. You can see the walkways around the perimeters. That was a very interesting project. I also worked on the Fort Zachary Taylor armament at the south end of Key West. This is a fairly recent photograph of it. All of that brick in the background and the metal roof in the background, that was originally 3 stories back when it was constructed in the 1800s. And then it just got to be too big of a target as armaments, as artillery got better and better. So they started taking down a story at a time, and this is basically what ended up with just a 1-story, but beautiful place to visit. As you can see in the foreground, it has had additions to it during World War I and World War II, and even in the 40s. I think there was what this picture is taken from is a concrete armament, basically a cache for all the shells and gunpowder that was involved. I don't have my button to work with, so I'm kind of having to skip here a little bit, missing a few things. What is an expert? This is a talk on selecting experts for construction cases. An expert has 3 definitions here. The first one is actually from the legal dictionary: a person who has a broad and deep competence in terms of knowledge, skills, and experience through practice and education in a particular field. The second one is just a dictionary type of a definition of person with extensive knowledge or ability based on research, experience, and occupation, and in a particular area of study. And the third one was told to me by an attorney, a person who knows more than the average citizen about a particular topic or field. That may make you the expert in the room, but it's only in that room that you would be an expert. Outside that room, you may not be considered an expert. So the first 2 definitions for sure, depending on your knowledge, skills, and experience, that's the definition of an expert. What is an expert witness? A person who is a specialist in a subject, often technical in nature, who may present his or her expert opinion without having been a witness to any occurrence relating to a lawsuit or criminal case. That's what we do all the time as a forensic engineering company, engineering and architectural company, and that is evaluating damages and distress that has occurred previously that we weren't privy to, but we evaluate and find data and supporting information to evaluate those structures. And the objective of an expert witness is to assist the trier of fact, that's you all, in understanding technical issues within the expert's field of experience and expertise. And that's critical. There are a lot of professionals, engineers and architects, that believe they have knowledge and experience outside of their specific field. They really shouldn't be doing anything other than what's specific to their experience and expertise. And the second issue is to provide professional opinions regarding relevant facets of those issues that are involved in that case. I've met several attorneys that I've been involved with depositions or mediation, and they know a lot about construction. That's what their area of practice is. But there's always a good idea to have another set of eyes, another voice, another experienced person that has something that can complement what you might already know, or some things that you might not know and can bring to the case for you. That's what we're here for. If properly selected, your expert witness can be utilized to defend your defense position. That's obviously why you've contacted your expert witness. But secondly, and sometimes more importantly, is to effectively challenge or disqualify the plaintiff's expert witness. I've run into some expert witnesses that have been coloring outside the lines, for sure. Some principles that they might have, or some experience or concepts that they might have that aren't approved by their peers, not even heard of by their peers. Sometimes we run into some things in expert reports where we just go, whoa, where did that come from? So it's also important to have an expert witness that can help you to understand what the opposing expert witness is saying and whether or not it is within the realm of accepted practice and standards within the engineering or architectural communities. Part of selecting an effective expert witness, and I should have underlined effective, is first of all, as I said, he needs to be qualified, qualifications, and licensed in the state or jurisdiction that the case is located. That, you know, if they're not licensed, that should be a no-go situation, because most states, I think pretty much every state, says that if you practice engineering, you better be registered in our state for that situation. Also with architecture, practicing engineering without proper licensure can get you in some big trouble. Never mind just disqualify you from your case. Experience relevant to the material of the case for which the expert witness will provide opinions. Again, it's that experience. Education is good. Experience is critical. If you don't have experience dealing with the topics of that case specifically, you can either have errors in your opinions, or you can be questioned by the opposing expert witness on something that you might have gotten wrong. So you need to have experience in the topics that you're providing those opinions. Communication skills is totally relevant and critical. The original paper that Dr. Chansey with our corporate office wrote, he basically started out the description with avoiding Poindexter, selecting expert witnesses for construction cases. I left out the avoiding Poindexter portion of it. I didn't want to offend anybody who might have a middle name with Poindexter, or it kind of a confusing way to start the project. But basically what he was referring to is having an expert that knows everything and anything about the topic, but cannot communicate those that understanding or those opinions to the audience, is basically worthless to your case. You have to have an expert witness that can communicate and distill technical topics down to the level of the audience. You have to know your audience and whether or not it's a technical audience or a lay audience or just a jury of pretty much anybody. You have to be able to communicate those technical issues and have the skill to do that. And last one there, interpersonal appeal. You really want to select somebody that doesn't turn off your jury, that doesn't cause conflicts with unnecessary conflicts with the opposing attorney or expert witnesses, or just is a, well, that's because it is because I said it is. You don't want that kind of a person to be your expert, because it just will alienate your entire case. So often we get a phone call and we just receive a comment, I need an engineer or architect. No, you don't. You need a specific building science professional, a specific professional with a particular set of skills, knowledge, and experience. You want to be sure that you're getting the right person, because if you're not taking care right from the beginning of what type of professional you want to have, you might feel that you're stuck, or that you get stuck with somebody that doesn't really match up to what you really need. And at some later point, you might need to modify or add to that list of expert witnesses. So you want to pay particular attention and be specific in what your needs are. Is it structural? Is it load condition, vibration, something that has to do with structure? Is it mechanical, something to do with heating and air conditioning, or a system of some sort in a building? Is it electrical, or power surge, or interruption of electric? Is it architectural in nature? Is it something to do with a slip and fall? Is it something to do with code violations for access, ADA, anything like that? Is it safety related, industrial related, environmental? Is it something that has to do with the site of a particular claim that has been contaminated? Also, chemical would be something similar to that. Is it something construction management related that has to do with deficiencies in the management of a construction of a facility, that type of thing? Is it specifications of what materials or how something was to be provided? All these different things that can be, they're all architects or engineers, but they're all different niches of architects and engineers. And you really need, right from the very beginning, you need to be sure what, or have a good idea of what you want to have. We cover all those topics with our engineers and architects, but some are more proficient in different areas, and you want to make that point at the beginning so that you get the right person. And you may need multiple expert witnesses to cover all of the issues of the case. You may need to have a mechanical and a structural and a civil engineer that has to do something with the site in general, or geotechnical considerations. So knowing not that you just need somebody for the help, but what kind of person you need is going to be very beneficial to you in the long run. Before selecting an expert, like I said previously, you have to make sure, and we do not put anybody in place that isn't licensed in the location, but you want to make sure that they're licensed, properly licensed, currently licensed in the state or jurisdiction of the case, where the case is located. That expert has verifiable knowledge and experience of what he'll be providing opinions on is critical. And it's worth some questions, even some pretty critical questions, right from the beginning on your part, to determine that this is the right person for your file. They possess solid command and technical fundamentals relevant to the technical issues. That goes along with the previous one. Peculiar to your case. Not every case is not every roof case is the same. Not every earthquake case is the same. Not every hurricane case is the same. There's always particulars that are specific to that situation. Familiarity and practical experience with the type of project and relevant trades at issue. That gets into the experience. Most of our professionals have multiple years of design experience, which means that they have designed, specified, and even possibly managed construction inspections of facilities, buildings, structures that they have been involved in, either as engineers or as architects. So that familiarity and the practical experience with that type of a project is very relevant. And finally, knowledge of customs and practices in play at the time of construction is critical. Like I said previously, I have a fair amount of experience in historic structures, which means that I have a knowledge, well, it doesn't necessarily mean that, but I do have a knowledge of what trades were involved, how they constructed things back when it wasn't the way it is these days, when it was all manual, when it was all basic materials, that kind of information and knowledge of when the particular facility or construction issue occurred, what was going on at that time, what was typical for construction and the industry at that time. Vet properly and choose wisely. And all of that has to go with everything that I've mentioned so far. And you want to, right from the very beginning, you want to have questions about a record of the individual's testimonies, their depositions, court appearances. I just was deposed for a file that I have, and it might have been the first time that anybody saw my record of testimonies and depositions. And to me, that would be one of the first things that I would ask if I was a lawyer looking for an expert witness. Can you tell me, can you show me, can you send me your record of legal actions, testimonies, depositions, so that I know right off the hand, yeah, you got one, or man, you got 500 of them here. You know, you're the one I want, or maybe you're not the one I want. Maybe I want somebody that doesn't have all of this, is more specific, and it's a good thing to know about the expert witness that you're about to choose. That they have the ability to analyze and develop valid opinions based on facts, supported by the community of his or her peers. Those are critical items. There are a lot of opinions, whether they're based on facts, sometimes is not the case. And whether they're supported by their community of peers is another situation that is a problem. And if you want to be safe, you should ask, general questions of what are your opinions on this case. Just overall, don't get too specific. Just tell me, overall, what are your valid opinions, and then take a gut check on that to see if that's something that you think is relevant and is correct. You want to check if qualified and quantified data in analysis or research. Have they done research like this? Is it data and that can be repeated scientific method wise? Can it be analyzed properly? Does it follow current research principles? Those are things that might be difficult to do, but you may just ask, can you show me something that you've done similar to this and how you handled it? That's not out of line to be asking of an expert witness that you're about to hire for a very important situation. So And along with that is the accepted industry literature and methods that have to do with analysis and research. Are other people doing the exact type of analysis? Are they doing the same testing? Is it something that has standards to it, that ASTM standards or some other type of standards? Is it something that everybody understands, everybody realizes that it's gone to that level of a national type of acceptance, and that's really where you want to be. So, and do they have experience in the design and analysis or the construction and administration of that type of a case, similar issues and that type of a structure, that type of a site, or whatever your case is. Standards for rendering expert opinions. One thing that is the death sentence of any expert witness is a legal challenge or dauber. And a good expert witness would be able to develop safety concerns or be able to withstand that type of a legal challenge to his methods or his analysis. It's even when you are challenged, it doesn't mean that that's the end of the case. You have the ability to fight that challenge, to present your specifics and get past that challenge. But a lot of opposing experts or opposing attorneys, that's something that they will look at right from day one. So you want to be able to have that ready to make sure that you're not going to run into that situation, because it could be the end of at least that expert witness, not necessarily the case, but that witness may be a major blow to your situation. And must be able to understand accepted testing procedures, analyze, interpret data from the testing, formulate conclusions based on the data, and critique other interpretations. And that last one is pretty important. Is when somebody else, another expert, tries to take your data and do something different with it, that you have the wherewithal and the knowledge and the experience to present it properly and critique what they're doing incorrectly, in your opinion. In your selection of an expert witness, these have pretty much been stated before, but communication skills are critical. You have to be able to communicate. The expert witness has to be able to communicate to the attorney fairly technical issues that may seem pretty mundane to the expert, but that's only because they've been doing it for 20, 30, 40 years. But has to be able to present those or describe or break down those technical issues to the attorney, to the opposing attorney that's going to be asking him all kinds of questions during deposition to start with, or mediation, or even in court when they've had a chance to actually understand what your stance is and how they can use that against you. Interpersonal appeal. It's important that an expert witness try to be engaging, not saying this is the way it is because I said it is. that's a shot in the foot right there. To actually be presentable and friendly, and not be defensive in any way, even when somebody is trying to make you feel defensive on purpose. It's really important that you have an interpersonal appeal in that way, and that you can control yourself in those situations. Ability to effectively communicate highly technical concepts. That's even to the point where you would have to describe this to a lay jury. Technical concepts. If you can't describe it, then like Dr. Chansey said, Poindexter can't explain this very critical multi-load analysis mathematical model that he developed to evaluate a structure if you can't bring it down to the basics of what those technical concepts can mean to somebody that isn't in that world, that doesn't understand those terms, those ideas, those principles. And in part, in doing that, the expert witness has to communicate clearly, concisely, cohesively, accurately, and understandably. And it has to be not a ramble. You'll lose with technical issues. If you ramble, you will lose 99% of your audience within the first 20 seconds. You have to be able to be clear what your terms are, even explain them as you're going. Concise, specific. This is exactly what I'm trying to say here. I'm not being covering 4 different things at the same time. I'm covering this item right here, and I'm making it as most understandable as I can for my audience. The expert should be confident and upbeat, have an upbeat demeanor to develop worthiness between even the opposing attorney within opposing witnesses. You don't want to have some type of a battle going on with the jury for sure, with the judge if there is one involved. You want to be pleasant, confident, and upbeat so that you have this trustworthiness about you. That also goes with the interpersonal environment of integrity, candor, and positive discourse. One thing you don't want to do is, as an expert witness, you don't want to have your expert witness get defensive by an attorney that's trying to get to a point and knows how to get to that point. So you want to have the wherewithal and the ability to even get into positive discourse. Say, I understand what you're saying, but I disagree. My opinion is such and such. And after about 5 different tries, if that's your opinion, you stay with it. That's where the trustworthiness and the integrity come in, so that you can have a positive discourse, but that it does not change your opinions. And finally, proper body language. Sitting there with your arms crossed, leaning back with a scowl on your face. Death tones coming across right there. So all those things are very critical to an effective expert witness. And that basically gets wrapped up into this next heading here: the technically proficient, emotionally intelligent, socially skilled, and experienced with the issue. That you know your stuff, technically proficient, that you can, describe what specifically we're talking about, know exactly what's being asked of you. That's critical. Emotionally intelligent, that's being able to keep your positive attitude, your personal togetherness, your candor, and even the discourse that was mentioned on the previous slide. You have to be emotionally intelligent to understand that somebody might be trying to get you outside of your control, trying to get you ticked off, trying to get you to get upset and say something that you didn't really mean to say, but you said it because you were egged on in that direction. And you have to be emotionally intelligent to understand that that's always there. Socially skilled, obviously, to know when a joke is made, know when things are serious, know when you need to describe in more detail, when it looks like you're losing people, that type of thing. And experience with the issue is obviously important. As the attorney, you need to use your expert to challenge opposing experts, their analysis and opinions. That's really beneficial to you, and that's almost as important as the expert witness just providing the story, describing the situation, evaluating and analyzing the situation, to make sure that The opposing experts are doing the same thing, are staying within the same rules, that are talking only about things that are standards in the community, in the engineering or architectural community. That's a critical issue to use your expert for, is to keep everybody else in line. And the second one being to eliminate this junk science that proliferates these days, opinions unsupported by peers and the engineering building science community in general. Like I said, I've run into a few that had some head scratching concepts that we just sat around and just what's going on? What are they doing? Wow, you know, that type of a situational wow experience. And that's an important thing that I've only had one attorney actually utilize me for this, and I think it's critical. Maybe not necessary if you're very experienced with construction and law and all that, but for the specifics of the case, it still could be important that an expert witness might be able to say, well, ask him about this, because what he's talking about, I've never heard of, nobody's ever heard of, none of my peers have heard of, and I have not run across this situation. So that is definitely something questionable and possibly junk science. So utilize if you got a good one, utilize your expert witness. He can be a great help in those situations. And for your benefit and also for your expert's benefit, prepare your expert, prepare him for the deposition, prepare him for court, prepare him for mediation. He may be an expert in his world or her world, but he or she is not in their world now, they're in your world. The legal world is very different than the engineering or architectural world. Maybe an expert in building design, but I'm not an expert as to how the legal system works and how a lawyer works. And don't assume that I do. Don't assume that I know what's going on, what the game is. I may have been there 20 times, but there's always somebody you haven't run into yet that has a way of, has knowledge or has experience or has a way. So you need to prepare your expert. You might know your opposing attorneys and your expert doesn't. So fill them in, let them know what's going on. And one of the things that I've been told by a couple of attorneys that I think is critical that every attorney should mention to their expert witness is only answer what is asked and nothing more. If you're asked something, answer it. Don't go on. You might be covering things that now you're informing the opposing attorney of something that he wasn't aware of needlessly. Or you may be putting your foot in your mouth in something that might catch you later on. So only answer what is asked, nothing more. That's a great thing to tell your attorney, your expert witness. Every attorney should be telling an expert witness that. And don't put an expert, your expert, who's under oath in a position that he can do harm to your defense. And I have personal experience on that. Fortunately, it didn't come to fruition, but if the opposing attorney had asked about 2 or 3 specific questions of me during my deposition, it could have been a bad situation. So you want to make sure that your expert witness and you know what the scope of that expert witness, the scope of his opinions, the scope of what he's been asked to do for that claim. You need to know specifically what's going on, because a smart attorney can possibly go around the back and come in with a question that could be very detrimental to your defense. And you want to prepare and protect your expert for that type of a situation. Finally, don't put words in your expert's mouth. Just entice your expert to prepare his own response. He knows what his opinions are. if you tell him what his opinions are, you may tell it a little bit differently, and he needs to be able to rely on his experience, his expert opinions, and that's what comes out. That's what truth is. Truth is coming out with exactly what you feel, what you know is right, which is your opinion. And if something exterior has been included, it confuses the situation and could become a problem. So entice is a good word. Entice your expert to develop his opinions, but don't tell him what his opinions are. Don't try to formulate or constrict or diverge his opinions with additional information. And that's the end of presentation. Who is Poindexter? I put that in for Dr. Chansey's benefit. Poindexter, I couldn't find an actual Poindexter, a famous mathematician Poindexter. He was very specific, so he obviously is. That's why he's a doctor, and I'm just a professional engineer. He does know the situation, and it was a mathematician that developed a huge and very critical mathematical model for loading of a structure. It's all mathematical modeling, but he couldn't explain it to anybody very well. And although it was a credible work of art with unparalleled specifics, it was so detailed and so complicated, and he was so limited in his abilities to communicate that it didn't do a whole lot of good. I mean, eventually people studied it and studied it and studied it, apparently, and it became something of importance. He himself wasn't able to present that situation. Anyway, any questions and answers at this point? Any concerns?
If there are any questions, you can go ahead and type them in the chat, and I'll wait a couple minutes here to see if any come through. None are there right now, but if some come through, we'll read them off, and David can help us out here.
And David, I was going to add to the Poindexter thing. I have always maintained that an expert, and this is, I'll go outside the construction law arena, whether you're talking about a medical doctor, whether you're talking about a real estate attorney, talking to a computer programmer, someone who can explain it in layman's terms, for me, that demonstrates their understanding of their own field, because they take something very complex, they know it so well, they can talk at different levels. They can make it for someone who has no information about the subject. They can make it more complex if there's someone who has limited knowledge, and they can also make it very complex if they're up against another expert in the same field. So I think for me, that's when I look for an expert, I always look for somebody who could speak at it on different levels.
Yes, it's very important to be able to do that, and you're right. The different levels, I could be speaking of just a building in general, and get very specific into the moment connections and the shear connections and the flexions and the building drift and all that. But I can also bring it down to, okay, you have a cardboard box. It has 4 sides, a roof, and a bottom. That's a building.
That's exactly that's perfect.
This is what's happening to that building. Somebody put a big hole in this side and a big hole, and just go on. But down to the very basic of, everybody knows a cardboard box. Everybody knows that. And everything in between, okay, if you understand that, then you'll understand this. And if you understand this, you'll understand that. So yeah, it's important to be able to do that. Yes.
That's right. And in construction, bringing it back to construction, it is so complex when we're talking about, it doesn't matter whether they're talking about flooring failures, and we don't know whether it's an engineering problem or whether it's a grading problem or whether it's something to do with the chemical bonds between the floor and the subsurface. I mean, it gets very technical, and we need the experts to come in and build that narrative for us, like you said, tell the story. And then also, like you said, we, at least at Cobb Law Group, we always use experts to help us as a part of the team. We do use experts to help build the questions we're asking of certain witnesses, how we're going to approach the other side's expert. So all of those points are extremely valid, and it's something that construction lawyers use every single day. So thank you for bringing that to the table for conversation.
We don't seem to have any questions, but Jim Hanna says thank you, good information.
Great. Well, if anybody has any questions, they're welcome to contact Nielsen Forensics at the information here. Of course, I'm Mark Cobb with the Cobb Law Group. That's cobblawgroup.net, cobblawgroup.net. If you have any questions we can help you with, we can put you in touch with Nielsen Forensics. Just let us know how we can help you.